It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. As we begin a Thursday, Gary, what's happening?
Well, let's talk sports.
All right.
Good afternoon, sports fans. Biff Barr from the Biff Barr Sports Spot Spotlight. Okay, I'm stealing from George Carlin there. But Kaepernick says he's ready again. It was actually a story yesterday.
Ready to watch some football?
He's
A lot of people are. So, I mean, it's mid-August. And?
You and I were talking a couple of weeks ago. He's, okay, where's the Kaepernick story? And it actually came out 2 days ago, and I just remembered it now before we went on the air.
You see him standing in an electronics store in front of a bunch of TVs, you know, going, I'm ready.
He said he'd be up for playing flag football at the next Olympics.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, I heard breakdancing is done.
Yeah, I think it was done before that. You know, here's the thing. Don't go back to a fad. And by the way, for the millions of breakdancers who listen to us, don't send me an email. Don't go back to a fad from 1984.
That's what it.
What do we need? What's missing from the Olympics? I know. Breakdancing. But it was okay. We could do some. You're right. We could do some breakdancing in the opening ceremony. No, I mean as a sport. Okay, let's stop serving alcohol at these meetings.
I love the Seinfeld memes that are out there showing Elaine, winning the breakdancing. Remember how she danced?
Oh, my gosh.
It was.
My gosh.
That should be the new Olympic sport.
And then
dance like Elaine.
Yeah, and then the one breakdancer that didn't get 1 point at all. And then her family was blaming the judges. Nope.
But that's a one and done.
Mm-hmm.
You will not have breakdancing at any future Olympics. That's the first thing when I heard that I went right back. And it's funny because you said 84, and I remember 84. And you know how? I was working in Florida.
Yeah.
And my night guy, Steve O'Day.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, for anybody listening in the Okaloosa County area, Stephen Baldwin, longtime Okaloosa County Sheriff.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Lately, I've been mentioning people. Remember, I mentioned last week, I mentioned my buddy Jack.
Yeah, and then people show up. Yeah.
I mentioned my buddy Jack on my college buddy Jack Cummings. And I said his full name, and I just said, when I first met him. And it was what I always do when I say, look, you can't look at a person and figure out politically what they are all the time. And it was Jack when I first met Jack, and I met him, and we're sitting at the table at the community college that I went to my first 2 years. There's this guy, and somebody goes, hey, Jack, what's up? And he goes, I got my work hat on, my work shirt, my work boots, my work belt, my work pants, my work shoes. I'm heading off to the welfare office.
Yeah.
That's how I remember him. Well, one of the owners of a great live music venue in the Black Rock section of Buffalo, New York, the Sportsman. It's a great live venue. I mean, it's just, I'm guessing here fits about 200 people, but it's got a balcony that looks right over the stage. It's killer.
Yeah.
He heard it and knows Jack and texted Jack. And the next morning, Jack texted me, you talking about me on the radio? So it's wow. But I'll never forget when Steve Baldwin, he was in high school, and he was working the night, when I got there, he was working like the evening show.
Right. Which was, aside from mornings, it was a top 40?
Yeah.
So aside from mornings and evenings,
he had
it. You're the rocks. For those in the Dallas area, the late, great Kid Craddock, that's where he really made his name when he was much younger. Years ago, Kid Craddock was in the evenings.
In the evenings, right.
Yeah.
And Steve, I'll never forget Steve doing it. He was really pushing, saying, look, we got to have a breakdancing contest. And that was like 83 into 84, but it was later on, so it had to be 84.
Yeah.
So when you said 84, I just flashed right back to working in Fort Walton Beach.
Yeah.
In radio, my second radio job.
Yeah.
So so that was just.
When I saw the breakdancing thing, I was actually at a meeting when they announced it was going to be a sport. I was at the meeting for the National Association of Thumb Wrestlers, and we've been trying to get into the Olympics for a long time. Now, my arthritis keeps me out of the game, but I still coach, and I don't know if we're.
I can't. I've got arthritis in that thumb now.
Also, there was a thing where I was betting on a match one time, and that kind of threw my chances of long-term greatness. I'm not going to get into the Thumb Wrestlers Hall of Fame, apparently, but I will say that I can think of many other sports long before breakdancing. Oh, you know why? Because breakdancing isn't a sport.
All right, there you go. There's the sports update here from Red Eye Radio.
Exactly.
Well, I got to find, I was scanning yesterday. I was busy. In fact, I was shopping. And so I had my phone, and it was somewhere on social media. And to me, it was really the moment of the day where it was a surrogate of Harris.
Yeah.
Because they're being pounded now. I mean, they're being pounded on her not doing an interview.
Yeah.
And the excuses. I mean, even Jim Acosta is questioning the Harris campaign.
Right.
And we'll have that audio coming up here in a little bit. But it was a surrogate who said, and I went, wow, we've come full circle now. Now, we know that the mainstream media is the propaganda arm for the Harris campaign. Everybody knows. Everybody knows it. I mean, every Democrat knows it.
Right.
It was just like, as they're sitting there, as they're, just look, they're destroying their credibility. But because if you've seen, the audience keeps going down, 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 down in the mainstream media.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen it. Newspapers closing. You've seen the numbers. For so many outlets out there. And the problem is they're liberal, but the big problem is they claim to be fair, and everybody knows they're not.
Right.
And that's why we played the CNN thing yesterday. We know you guys are fair and unbiased on Colbert, and everybody laughed. And by the way, they got a lot of play yesterday, which showed everybody really knows what's going on. But we have also said that the Republicans and conservatives need to stop pretending that they need to get back to journalism. They do a different job. They're political activists.
Yeah.
They are propaganda political activists for the left. They have no interest at all in journalism.
Nope.
They're not journalists. They weren't journalists. They're not going to be journalists. So stop hoping that they'll be journalists and just accept the fact that they're not, and that should be the absolute starting point.
Yep.
But it was a surrogate. Oh, I got to find it. I was telling you, as soon as I came in, I was shopping, and there's so many things that we look at, and I couldn't find it before the show began. But the surrogate was saying, nope, look, we're not really pushing hard for her to talk to the media because you really can't trust the media.
Right.
I'm like, oh, my God, the media, the media but the media is okay with it because they understand the whole point. We're not journalists. We're not insulted because we are political activists. So the campaign can actually come out and say, no, we're not going to do any interviews. We're really not going to do any interviews, and we'll think about it. But we need to find the right media outlet because you really can't trust the media, as the media is totally in bed with them.
Yeah.
They've completely abandoned journalism. And it's like, well, okay, let's blame them too. And it's like, well, they're fine because that's great political strategy. We'll continue being the propaganda political arm of the Democratic Party and the Harris campaign, as the Harris campaign criticizes us and justifies not doing a press conference because you can't trust the same media that's in bed with us.
Well, yeah. I mean, for those waiting for a press conference, just go over to CBS News and ask them questions about the campaign. They'll know. They'll give you everything you need. And it is laughable. And it really is. You and I, it's almost like, all right, we've arrived. We're here. We're ready. And then we look behind us, and there's so many people on the right that are so far behind it. That should be far ahead on this, should be leading this that we have been talking about for years. We don't consider ourselves to be on the forefront of it until we find other people going on the right going, well, these journalists aren't doing their job. What journalists?
Yeah.
And, and I talked about it one time, and I talked with Sean Spicer, an interview I was filling in on the morning show on our flagship WBAP, and we had Sean Spicer on. This was after he left the White House. And I said, well, because these people in the press room, the press, they're not journalists, they're activists. He said, well, I've never thought about it that way. And I thought, okay, I guess it is going to be a longer, I don't know. It's because I didn't think it needed to be an educational approach on this item at all.
I know.
It just, I thought it was a given. And I didn't think we were on the forefront of using that term for them, activists. But it seems more and more we are, at least with some of the old school Republicans and maybe even or people on the right and maybe even some of the newer ones. But it is very clear, and you know it when you see it. And we don't even use the bias. We don't even use the word bias. It's not bias.
No, it's not bias.
No, it's
right.
Full-on activism.
Right. Yes.
They are invested heavily in this, which is why you can't. It's why when they get called out, the next day they're on to the next thing. They don't come back and go, well, we'd like to issue a correction. No, that rarely happens. It happens on The View because the lawyers are sitting right there. But it rarely happens and they're not the media.
No, it only happens when they get into defamation territory.
Exactly. You're right. And so you never see that. You're not going to see the correction on it. We were wrong about calling them. No. I forget what it was. Oh my gosh. It was a headline on one of the apps from one of the liberal media groups. And I got a push notification on it. And I should have done a screenshot, but it's the terminology that they use, and it really is full-on attack mode on Trump. And then, well, we brought you the headline, the two different headlines from CBS News on taxing the waiters' tips and servers'
right.
tips and all of that, and the two very different, vastly different headlines from the same so-called media group, activist group at CBS.
Yeah, on the same issue, it was pretty obvious. But the quick overview to start the show. Mm-hmm. Again, it's been since she picked Waltz, every single day has been the advantage to the Republicans and the Trump campaign.
Yep.
And it was again yesterday. Trump gave his speech. It's a good speech for Trump. Mm-hmm. I liked how in the back, the background, no tax on tips. No Social Security tax right there. So that was a constant thing that you would see.
Right.
Great move. He did not. I thought he might because he was talking about Kamala Harris and then MAGA. And then he did say, come up with a new offshoot of MAGA, Make America Affordable Again.
Yeah.
And I went, you know something? You need to pound that. That when I heard that, I went, okay, that's pretty good. But he has not yet. I thought maybe we were going to hear about Kamaga. Okay, maybe it hasn't got to the top of the campaign yet.
Yeah.
Maybe they're workshopping it.
Maybe.
But there is a consolation prize.
There is.
They are using a phrase that you and I brought up months upon months upon months upon months ago, and it was one of our listeners, Twitter follower, who made sure that I got the audio on it yesterday, OG Catman.
Okay.
And you ready?
All right.
Are you ready?
All right.
You'll recognize this.
Yeah.
He did. I love it. I love it when our listeners recognize something and make sure that we get it. Here it is. Here we go.
All right.
Okay.
I mean, they came up with a plan to go after all these people violently. Then one day she just uttered that sound, but she'll copy a lot of other things too. But she'll never do them. She'll say them for the election, but she'll never do them. She can't solve the problem because she is the problem.
We have a win. We
got a win.
Thank you. Good night. Drive safely.
We didn't get Kamaga yet.
Yeah,
they haven't embraced Kamaga, but
can you play that again? Can you cue it up and play it again? I got to hear that. Can we play it again like 90 more times this hour alone?
Okay, here we go.
All right.
Here we go.
Okay.
She'll never do them. She'll say them for the election, but she'll never do them. She can't solve the problem because she is the problem. She really is.
Told you.
But he was talking about how she's embracing everything, and I'm like, come on, Kamega.
I love
And
it.
for those people who didn't hear it the last couple of days, we have come up with an idea that the campaign should use, that she's embracing that Donald Trump is the great uniter in this country on the major issues, because now the Democratic nominee has embraced what Trump believes, and we're calling it Kamaga.
Yes.
And we know that it's unifying the nation, because I still to this day, now we've been talking about this it's Thursday, right?
Yeah.
So all this week we've been talking about it.
Yep.
And I have not yet received any Democrat or heard any Democrat that is upset about Kamaga.
Right.
And that's why we say it's unifying the nation, because Democrats are all behind Kamaga.
Yep.
And that's Kamala Harris embracing MAGA and the major tenets of MAGA.
Yes.
And so Donald Trump, as we've said, is the great uniter. And we have it. I think still it's second post. I think on my X page.
I'm going to repost it again here in a minute.
At Gary Red Eye 1. Okay, maybe I'll do it too. Repost it for a while. We normally don't do this stuff on social media, but there's sometimes you come up with something that you go, okay, this is something the campaign should be using,
right? Because
it backs them against the wall.
Yep.
Kamaga. Boy, that would be great to hear the president say it. It would be great to hear the surrogates say it over and over again. You don't even need to give us credit. We're making this clear. Nobody has to give us credit on it. All right?
No. If he says the word Kamaga, that's it.
I'm retiring.
That's going to be it. I'm going to somehow phrase that video. I don't know how you do that, but I'm going to frame the video. I don't know how you're going to, but I'm going to do that. And because the message gets across, I don't care if you mention my name. If the message gets across, it's a win.
Kamaga. Come on, Trump campaign. Kamaga. 866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Keep your engine humming in the heat this summer by keeping up with preventive maintenance. Think your PM is complete after your oil is changed? Think again. There's grease, transmission fluids, and gear oil to consider too. Transmission fluid, for example, prevents wear of gears, bearings, and bushings, protects against corrosion, and acts as a heat transfer fluid. You may not think about this every time you get behind the wheel, but as soon as it's not doing its job, you'll notice. Misapplication of transmission fluid can mean reduced fuel economy and abrupt or hard shifts if the static friction is too high. It can also cause sluggish operation at low temperatures if the viscosity is too high, and leaking through seals if viscosity is too low.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I mean, so much going on yesterday, but I'll just say this again. Overall, it was another Trump win. I know J.D. Vance, the top story on Fox News is J.D. Vance about, Republicans saying, stop hitting stuff like Brian Kemp, whatever.
Yeah.
And he said, well, part of his charm, 90% of his charm, Trump's charm, is doing these things. And it's like, but the 10% is the part that will kill you.
Yeah.
But it was interesting that that came out as a story yesterday when Trump was extremely disciplined.
Right.
But every single day since Waltz was picked, every single day has been a Republican and a Trump campaign advantage.
I think so.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. The facts keep getting in the way of the show. I don't know.
Why is reality keep getting in the way of our fine entertainment?
I screamed during the commercial break there. There's just so much stuff. And I looked at Eric. I go, I don't know where to go. I don't know where to go. There's too much stuff.
Exactly.
Well, and I thought about this. How about we'll start with this one. Everybody pay attention. I had criticism from I love this kind of criticism from a liberal the other day. And it said, you guys cover too many topics.
We don't know what to tell you. Drink more coffee? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. We've been saying for a long time, it's 5 hours. We still don't have enough time.
So here we go. Since we had started out talking about sports and breakdancing in the Olympics,
yeah,
I love it.
Yeah,
when those in the arena of sport debate,
yeah,
and we always love sports debate. Well, I think the Cowboys are going to win 17-14 this coming week. You're an idiot. It's going to be 14-7. Well, you guys are completely and totally clueless. It's going to be 21-19, and the Cowboys are going to lose. What the hell? You don't know what the hell you're talking about. That kind of intellectual stimulation that you get from sports talk, then they try to bring it over into the arena of political ideas. We will start with Stephen A. Smith blasting Kamala Harris for ducking the press. And in this, he proves he is Kamaga.
Yeah, he does.
He is Kamaga.
Yep.
Because he's not critical of anything, and he's not happy that she's not, that she's hiding, because he says he's a liberal. He's voting for her.
Yep.
That she's hiding. Well, why is she? Well, why do you think?
Yeah.
Here we go. You ready?
All right.
I just love this. I love when he loses it.
Now, Joe Biden stepped aside as the presumptive Democratic nominee on July 21st. Okay? Now I'm going to look at this right now. I'm looking at my calendar because I just want to make sure. July 21st was a Sunday. We've had 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and 1 day since Joe Biden stepped aside. The only damn place we've seen Kamala Harris is at pep rallies. What's up? Somebody got to say something. And it can't just be the conservatives. Right is right. I'm talking to my sister here. Come on now. You running for the presidency of the United States of America. You got my vote. You running for the presidency of the United States of America. What you hiding for?
Yet he still has her vote.
Right.
Or she still has his vote.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, apparently he likes what she's saying. As we have said, she's now moved to much of the MAGA agenda. He approves. Stephen A. Smith now approves of MAGA. He is fully behind Kamaga.
Well, you have to go based on what we know, and these are the things of what her campaign has released. She's pro-fracking. She's pro-secure border. She's for not taxing tips of servers.
Yep.
These are major tenets of the pro-Trump MAGA agenda.
Dropping nationalized health care.
Yeah. Dropping the whole, what's it, Medicare for all?
Medicare for all.
Which is, it was their, by the way, that for those that don't know, if you didn't follow along years ago when they started saying those silly words, Medicare for all, and you and I instantly, even back then, were going, wait a minute, they can't do some Medicare for some.
They can't do some Medicare for some, and those some have been paying premiums since they started in the workforce in their teenage years.
Exactly. And they want to do Medicare for all. And so they dropped that like a hot rock. And so you look at it and, you see that, and those are the things that we know that certainly Stephen A. Smith, because, he's waiting for her to do a press conference. He knows because he's paying attention, clearly. And he is fully on board because he's going to vote for her. He just said it. You got my vote. Well, you're pro MAGA. You are Kamaga full on.
Is Kamaga full on?
We didn't hear him in that rant, and maybe there was another rant that we missed, him coming out saying you cannot adopt the Trump campaign's core tenets. You can't agree with Trump.
I'll see if I can find that. I'll see if I can find that.
Maybe he said it or wrote it somewhere, and we missed it, but I haven't seen it. So until then, I'm led to believe he's okay with that, which makes him Kamaga.
Mm-hmm. And then you have the other sports talk show host.
Oh, Mad Dog.
Yes.
Yeah. Mad Dog Russo, who says, and let me get the quote. They put it on. Here's from Fox News, and on their X page, here is the actual link to the story. Sports radio legend Chris Mad Dog Russo rips Donald Trump for treatment of Joe Biden. Quote, really bothered me. Hey, Mad Dog, did it bother you when Joe Biden's own party kicked him to the curb?
Yeah.
And ushered in Kamaga without one single vote from her party? Did that bother you? Treatment of Joe Biden? Are you kidding me?
Understand to these sports talk show hosts, the arena of ideas, of politics, economics, national security are not the fluff of sports talk.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't matter whether you're wrong because you're wrong all the time in your predictions, which to me is still the dumbest thing that we do in this country.
Yeah.
The dumbest thing we do, especially in the sports world. Oh, who do you think is going to win? How the hell do I know? That's why they play the game. If I knew who was going to win, I wouldn't need to watch.
Right.
It's like I just, but Stephen A. Smith, Kamaga.
Yeah.
But when you see that, that's not a positive. I'm looking for. We went through the media. That's all I do. I wake up and all I do is search. Okay, where's it going for the day? Where's it going for the day? Where's it going for the day? And there's nothing at the end of the day. There's nothing on. And Trump now, in my opinion, this is all nitpicking now. He spoke again way too long. Now, I wish he would just speak 20 minutes and go, but you've got to greet the other politicians that are there who are supporting you, who are also running for office.
Yeah, that's part of the game.
That's part of what you do at the rally, and that really doesn't matter because most people, accept that. But what he talked about, he stuck really to economics yesterday, and bashed the and bashed the campaign. So he did good. It was too long for me.
Right,
it was like an hour and something. I'm like, get it down to half hour, get it down to 40 minutes. But nobody cares because you stay.
No,
and if you're like, okay, I've heard it, you move on. But what you heard, was it of substance of the economy? And it was. So Trump didn't hurt at all. J.D. Vance killed again yesterday. From Kamaga. What you got.
Right.
So much of yesterday was her being heckled in Detroit. By the pro-Hamas wing of the Democratic Party.
Right.
But when you look at and then the other thing is, and everybody was blasting it, whether it was CNN, on the Google ads.
Oh,
the fake news headlines.
Right.
Doing that, and you can tell Google wasn't happy with that. They said, "Well, there's a glitch, whatever. It's not going to happen again." But everybody was on that one.
Yep.
It was like, whoa, and then. I remember. Let me just find it here. I want to play this again because we played it yesterday. And I thought it was just on NBC, and apparently it was on MSNBC. And here it is. It's the oh gosh, I just lost it for a second here. It was on the they were interviewing blacks about what was going on. About what they about inflation. Here it is. I want to play this because this was on MSNBC. I didn't know. I thought it was it said NBC Now, and I found out this was on MSNBC. Now, listen to this.
How hard has inflation hit you?
It hit me hard. It's hitting me hard.
Who do you blame for it?
I blame the federal government at this point. If a working class mom who works as a paralegal cannot buy a $2 bell pepper because it's now $5, imagine a mother living on food stamps. Imagine a mother who's making minimum wage trying to feed children. They're killing us without killing us. If you understand that. They're killing us without telling us they're killing us. They're hurting people in ways that they can't help themselves. It's either feed my child or how about feed my children and I don't eat.
Very emotional. I mean, she's crying.
Yeah.
She's crying in there. But you look across, now that was 2 days ago, but you look at it across the board. I mean, this is, I want to play this because this is on CNN. This is Jim Acosta. There is no one in the media who was more of a propaganda political activist than Jim Acosta.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously just a Trump hater. Everyone knows it.
Right.
Here he is with a Harris campaign surrogate.
Michael, I'm sure this is not going to be the first time you've heard this question, but the Trump campaign is also going after the vice president for not doing enough interviews, for not holding a press conference. Would it kill you guys to have a press conference? Why hasn't she had a press conference?
Okay, now listen to the stall here. Listen to not answering the question. It goes on for a little bit, and then Acosta cross-examines him again.
Yeah, right.
Asks a follow-up question, which is sort of cross-examining.
Vice President and Governor Walz have been busy crisscrossing this country since the launch of this campaign and adding Governor Walz to the ticket. You saw the ways in which they went across the battleground states last week, generating rallies of thousands, 10,000 here, 15,000 there. But
Michael, a campaign rally is not a press conference. Do you mind if I cut in? I mean, a campaign rally is not a press conference. Why hasn't she had a press conference? She's the vice president. She can handle the questions. Why not do it?
We absolutely are going to do it. You hear her take questions as she's out on the stump, and she said last week, we're going to be having a sit-down interview here before the end of the month. What she's going to be focused on and what this campaign is going to be focused on is communicating directly with the voters that are actually going to decide the pathway to 270 electoral votes. That's why she
Can you commit to a press conference this week?
This past week. That's why we're doing a bus tour in Pennsylvania as we head into Chicago. And it's why we'll sit down for an interview before the end of the month to make sure that we can have a deep dive conversation about the vision that Kamala Harris has for where she wants to take this country and the contrast that we're going to have with Donald Trump. We're going to have plenty of opportunities to do that. Throughout the
Michael,
rest of,
but one interview by the end of the month.
This month and throughout the rest of the campaign.
I don't want to belabor this, but one interview before the end of the month. I mean, that's not a lot. I mean, can you commit to a press conference before the end of the month?
We will commit to directly engage with the voters that are actually going to decide this election, and that is going to be complete with rallies, with sit-down interviews, with press conferences, with all the digital assets that we have at our disposal. We are running a campaign that is built to communicate with the voters that are actually going to decide the pathway to 270 electoral votes. We are confident in the plan that we have in place, and we're going to execute on that plan.
And yesterday, the Trump campaign tweeted out this meme.
Okay, but you could see that even Acosta, who is the biggest liberal flack you could possibly get, who is the absolute epitome of the example that we give of a propaganda political activist.
Gosh. Yeah.
He knew. Everybody watching it could tell the BS, the bull was so large that and you hear Acosta in the middle of it. Yeah. He's trying to get in because he knows that Michael Tyler there is filibustering.
Yep. He is.
And he knows it's BS. We all do.
Yep.
Not a good day again for the Harris campaign. 866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Looking at the inflation numbers we'll get to following the top of the hour. The overall, the CPI rose 2.9% from a year ago and 0.2% in July. Now, that former figure is the smallest since March of 21, but the latter, the 0.2%, is an increase from May and June.
Right.
And also you had core inflation was 3.2% year over year. They said falling prices for goods have been offset by rising prices for services, especially shelter.
Right. And, the market is going, oh, well, this means that there's more room or more reason to believe that the Fed's going to lower interest rates in September. They might do that, and that might be a pure political move by Jerome Powell. It wouldn't surprise me at all that when you get closer to the election and you move a quarter of a point lower. But is there really something going on with inflation that is promising long term? I don't think so just yet. I don't think so.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Hi. Hello. All right, so Kamala Harris is going to have a speech this week. This will not be apparently a Kamaga speech, though.
Okay.
Not sure where to go. This is where she's going to suggest price controls for food.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Because she says the government needs to stop gouging.
Yeah, the gouging.
Well, this is all part of the biggest lie ever no, it's not the biggest lie ever. Economic lie. One of the biggest economic lies ever is, and the public still falls for it. The public is a bunch of idiots when it comes to understanding economics, because the biggest thing that the Democrats have succeeded in since I've been a radio talk show host, so that's at least 35 years, is the fact that Democrats have still successfully promoted, if you tax a corporation, you hurt the corporation. Mm-hmm. That the corporations are wealthy, when actually it's a stealth tax that hurts the poor the most. And for some reason, maybe the public does now, because the public seems to understand inflation.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So maybe they do now.
Yeah.
But the biggest lie, one of the biggest economic lies, I don't want to say the biggest because there's a bunch of them, but one of the biggest economic lies is that we need to tax those corporations more because they're becoming rich, when all you do is you put a stealth tax on the end consumer. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that the big lie that they've been telling, and Biden was telling it, that the inflation is coming because you've got companies that wish to make, that they become greedy all of a sudden. They become more greedy since 2021.
Yeah.
Now, that's ridiculous. It doesn't matter whether it was Milton Friedman talking about it 50 years ago or whether we're talking about it now. Economics doesn't change. I want to play this clip. We haven't played Milton in a while, have we?
All right. No, we haven't.
The late Milton Friedman. Here we go.
Inflation is made in Washington because only Washington can create money. And any other attribution to other groups of inflation is wrong. Consumers don't produce it. Producers don't produce it. The trade unions don't produce it. Foreign sheiks don't produce it. Oil imports don't produce it. What produces it is too much government spending and too much government creation of money and nothing else. Yes, sir.
There you go.
Yeah, full stop.
And
This idea, you got to build the jealousy and envy if you're on the left. That's the game. Build the jealousy and envy and the anger towards big corporations and price gouging. And these are the same people that are willing to get in line for a $9 coffee at Starbucks. And they look at all of these things and go, well, you should be angry at the corporations making the food. How many companies do you have out there, restaurants and companies large and small now, that are going through changes or bankruptcies as a result of not being able to make a profit? But even beyond that, you see it all the time. The name brand companies that make food, that make those items that are on the grocery store shelves, are all competing with the store brand items, and they realize this. They're doing everything now, throwing out coupons and everything else. The fact of the matter is that the cost of everything goes up. There's no way they can't pass that along to you, because if they don't, they go under, they lose money, and they're gone.
Well, you in economics also, what you have is if you have, for example, if everybody was gouging, because that's the thing, all the companies are gouging. That's what's causing inflation. That they weren't gouging, they're greedy now. They weren't greedy in 2020. They weren't greedy in 2019.
Right.
They weren't greedy in 2018. It's only after COVID where the company said, let's get greedy. And that's the whole point. What's the constant in economics? I'll use the G word. Companies are always greedy. Consumers are always greedy. Consumers want the lowest price. Consumers in the American public, you talk about greed. So many Americans want somebody else to pay their tab. That's greedy. Making a legitimate profit isn't greedy, but I don't want to get into the terms. I don't want to get off topic here. I don't want to be arguing or getting off topic on my topic that I came up with. But greed is always there. If you want to use a G word, I'll accept that, whatever greed is, because nobody ever defines what the word greed is. So I'll use the word greed. Corporations are always greedy. They were greedy in 2018. Why wasn't there inflation like we see now? Companies were greedy in 2012. Companies will be greedy next year, the year after, and consumers will want the lowest price.
Well, look at when the profit margins were the healthiest. And look what the prices were when they were the healthiest. Their profit margins were smaller, yet the prices were lower. The profit margins were larger, yet their prices were lower. Interesting how that works. What's different? Inflation.
Well, when you talk about it, you can't prove it when you talk about the profit margins, because the profit margin. If you saw companies with profit margins of 50% where they were 5% before, you might have a point. That's not the case, and we all know it. And
I might have a point, or you mean somebody else making the argument against that? What I just said.
I don't know where you're going.
Yeah, that's where I am with you, because my point is that if the profit margins were greater, but prices to the consumer were lower, then what's the difference between then and now? You mentioned 2018.
Yeah. Right.
2018, profit margins were greater. Companies were making greater profits. They were doing better. The economy was doing better for everyone, yet prices were lower.
Well,
so
because,
what was introduced?
Well, because they were selling more volume.
Right.
Yeah, you're making it up in volume by lowering the prices.
And
right.
what's different?
Yeah, I wasn't arguing
Right.
your point.
Right.
Okay. Because that's what I thought. I was like, no, I'm not arguing your point. I was just making giving another example. If you had profit margins that were 5%, then they're 50%, then you would question, well, how did you get to 50%? But when you're talking about profit margins, you may see a profit margin go from 3% to 4%. I was talking about you don't see a huge, except in cigarettes, soft drinks, and bottled water.
Well, yeah,
where you have some of the highest profit margins out there.
Right. Yes, but a jump from 3 to 4% would be a 25% increase in your profit margins. It's not just a 1 percentage point; it's the gain in that. So, I mean, I know what you're saying. It's not. You don't see these. You don't see these spreads on, the spreadsheet in that way. But the economy was doing better. Companies were more profitable. But what changed? Because the prices were actually lower then. Well, what changed? What was introduced? Inflation.
Well, yeah, inflation was introduced because it comes from loose monetary policy. And the inflation that we see now, there's always inflation. You're talking about out of control inflation.
Right. Anything above 2%.
Right. And so when you see us getting up to 9% in inflation as we did, what caused it? What caused it was loose monetary policy. There were two things. It was massive government spending and borrowing money and putting that money into people's pockets.
Right.
Where the economy wasn't backing that currency.
Which is the only time that they should be putting more dollars into the economy, printing more money, as they say. It should be represented by the expansion of wealth, which wasn't the case.
Exactly. So at that point, your dollar becomes worth less. And so then when you take and print money, as they did, they printed money in order to buy our own debt.
Right.
I mean, it is such irresponsible policy, but the Democrats can't look at it and say government causes inflation because that defeats their whole argument of borrowing more in the future.
Right.
So they've got to look out and they've got to lie to the American public and they say companies are responsible. Now, you notice what he said what Milton Friedman said, and it's true now. He said the producers, which are the companies, don't cause it. The consumers don't cause it. Trade unions don't cause it. Talking about the unions, they don't cause it. Why? Right. Because you're talking about everybody in economics there is dealing with competition.
Right.
Everything is competition. Union can ask for a ton of money. And if the company has to sell a product for a greater price, then they sell less of that product.
Right.
And therefore, they end up hurting.
Right.
So prices for companies can't just sit there and say, we're going to set whatever price we want.
Right.
Because you're dealing with competition and you can destroy yourself by doing something like that, so they don't.
Well, this is what Starbucks is going through right now.
They only do what the market will bear. Yeah, you're right. Starbucks CEO got fired. Starbucks is dealing with that.
This is their third CEO in 2.5 years.
But the fact is you're always dealing with competition there, which is what levels out the possibility of inflation. With the federal government, there is no competition. They can spend as much money. They can throw as much cash as we saw during COVID, and they can print money to buy our own debt in order to finance the irresponsible spending and then keep the interest rate artificially low in order to do completely irresponsible, be involved in completely irresponsible financial behavior, which we now know they believe it's now going to be. We reached already 1.9 trillion, I think, in debt already. In October, we still got another month and a half. Before October comes around, and they expect $1.2 trillion just in interest on the debt. And so, I can't call her Kamaga now because this is Kamala. Kamala will be out there talking about the fact that the government needs to stop the gouging on food. Now, it's not going to go anywhere. But the whole point that the Democrats are trying to push is that government needs to put price controls, which is as Soviet Union as you can get.
Right.
They need to put price controls on all products because the corporations are evil and they're the ones causing inflation. And it's as big a lie as when the Democrats promote that nobody suffers through corporate taxes when it's actually passed on to the consumer, and it's a stealth tax that hurts the poor the most.
We've just demonstrated that capitalism has its own price controls. Starbucks will tell you that. If they're speaking, the new CEO, Nickel, will tell you that. He actually did a pretty good job at turning around the company that he's coming from, Chipotle. And what you see when that happens, when the cost of goods and or services and or labor, all of this goes up, any of these companies can raise the cost of their goods and or services to the point the market will bear. At that point, you start seeing the erosion in the company. You start seeing it. They have to lay people off. They have to bring about automation. One of the things the now former CEO of Chipotle did was bring in automation to scoop avocados. I mean, it may sound like a small thing. It was a big deal. Innovation has to come in. We've seen this. Kiosks now where you come in and you can't afford it. A buddy of mine told me this, and I remember, and we've been buddies since high school. And he worked at a Burger King. And he said, we had so many people working at that one Burger King. And it was near an Air Force base. in this town where I graduated high school. And so it was very busy. Lots of airmen, when they were able to leave the base, they would come over, and there wasn't much fast food in that area. And so it was very busy, but fast food restaurants were staffed to the brim. And now you see that it's a very different approach because you're going to have to automate these things. This is part of what happens, the adjustment, the cost controls, price controls that capitalism is already built in. And if you can't do that, if you cannot stay within and keep that profit margin, some profit margin, if you can't preserve that, then eventually you're gone as a company. That's just the way it works. Those are the price controls that capitalism is built. There's no way around that, those principles of capitalism. There isn't. Unless you, which doesn't, it's not capitalism when you introduce government dollars going into the equation. That's not capitalism. That's socialism. Because I can hear it. Well, we need to bail out this and we need to bail out that. We need to do this. As you mentioned, everybody's got their hand out. You want to talk greed? We've said it for years. When the government starts talking about handing out money, everybody gets involved.
Well, the ultimate greed is the college loan transfer.
Yep.
That's the ultimate greed. I don't want to pay for my own debt.
Right. That I agreed to and get a benefit from.
Right. And I wish to get the money from somebody who didn't get this benefit to pay. That's greed.
Right.
You're greedy. Democrats are greedy.
Right.
Because they want someone else to pay the freight for them.
I have an advantage over them based on what I got in exchange for that debt, and some of the people that I want to pay my debt don't have that. It doesn't matter. I still want them to pay my debt.
It makes no sense when you sit for a minute and go, oh, yeah, that is greed, because corporations have to work within the competitive marketplace.
You went to college, you pay it. I didn't go. I'm not paying it.
Yeah. We got greed all over the place.
Yep.
Everybody's greedy.
Yep.
I think Milton Friedman said that to to
Who's
Phil
not,
Donahue.
Yeah, it's always the other guy.
Yeah, it's always the other guy who's greedy. I'm not greedy. No, everybody's greedy.
Everybody's greedy.
Depending on what greed is, though. I mean, greed to me is when you look at it. I mean, greed is I deserve this from somebody else.
Right.
Corporations aren't saying I deserve your money. Give it to me.
Right.
Now, government's doing that to the automobile manufacturers.
Right.
We're going to make it so hard where government's going, well, give us some of your money. Well, the automobile companies are greedy. Well, no, they're asking for money from the government because the government is mandating that they sell something that they can't make a damn profit on.
Right.
And then unions got involved in it. The union leadership, as we talked about yesterday, we need some of that taxpayer dollars too for our auto workers.
Right.
Wait a minute. What are you talking about? This isn't in the arena of competition anymore.
Right.
This is all because the government gets their stinking hands into something
Exactly.
and screws it up completely.
Exactly.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Surviving and thriving as an owner-operator has just as much to do with managing costs as it does with generating revenue. Like the chief financial officer of any company, you have to be concerned about rising costs, especially without increases in revenue. Trying to reduce costs, let alone make sense of them, can be a complicated task. Understanding basic principles of operating costs can save you thousands of dollars a year. A penny saved could be $1,000 earned. Saving just 1 penny per mile over 100,000 miles driven annually will deliver $1,000 to the bottom line at the end of the year. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, so I just we just wanted to make sure that we hit the stuff on inflation, and again gave you a little little notification about where Kamala will be going on Yes, this is Kamala. There's
not
the two.
Kamega. Yeah.
Because who knows how long Kamega will last. Now, we will have to get yesterday. You see the White House is saying we agree on everything. And then the Axios story coming out saying that they want to split from Biden. And so the questions are going to Karine Jean-Pierre. We'll play this for you coming up following the bottom of the hour.
Yeah.
Oh, no, they're completely together on everything, on everything.
Right.
It's like, but Axios has a story that she wants to split with it. And the funny thing is, Karine Jean-Pierre has to be going crazy because now they're asking her questions about two people.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
which is like, whoa.
And, the good news is we had Axios to tell us also why it matters. So,
exactly right. Why it matters.
If the two idiots overnight can understand it, so can you. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. By the way, coming up here in a little bit, Robert Kennedy Jr. Wow.
Yeah.
Both the Washington Post story, the New York Post story, apparently trying to sell himself to the highest bidder. Who will give me a job and you get my endorsement?
Anyone?
Apparently to both, according to the Washington Post and the New York Post. Both he's now trying to approach. Well, he has been approaching the Harris campaign, but they refuse to talk to him. But he's blunt about it. I want a position in there, and I'll give you my endorsement. Did the same with Trump last month, according to both the New York Post and the Washington Post. We'll get to that here in a little bit.
We have not followed up on the unconfirmed story that he's also approached Cornel West. We'll work on that.
He's not had a good couple of weeks.
I don't know if I can bear any more. That was so weak.
If a bear in the woods. Okay, no, we're moving on.
The only thing worse than coming up with the idea that he had to dispose of the bear was the idea that I had to make that joke. I'm just going to admit it.
Taking a look at the umbrella of the campaign, as we like to do. We started the show with it to let people know what we think, because I get that more than anything. Okay, guys, who's winning today? Who's winning today? Yeah. And I think it's important. It's important to sit there every day because people want to know. People are busy in their lives and like, I'm not sure what's going on. It was another day where the Trump campaign won again.
Yeah.
As we have stated before, when a couple of weeks ago, Trump was out there hitting Brian Kemp.
Mm-hmm.
We said, don't do that. Because, boom, that becomes the news story.
Yeah.
When you went on with the black journalists and decided to argue identity politics the way they argue identity politics, you set yourself up. You became the news at the end of the day.
Yeah.
The whole goal is that the opposition is always on the defensive. And that's what's happened since the Waltz pick a week ago Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That and the fact that she won't do an interview is just killing her. The entire Kamega thing, where she's trying to separate herself, and Axios had a story out saying that they want to move away from Biden. They don't know how to do it, but they wish to move away from Biden. They know they cannot tie themselves to Biden. Now, here's the problem. This is the White House press conference, and this may make it into a part of this may make it into a political ad for Trump.
Yeah.
This is Pete Ducey.
Mm.
All right, so you know it's going to be good. Here we go.
When did you guys learn that Vice President Harris wants to distance herself from Bidenomics?
Why do you think that?
Axios is now reporting that she is hoping to distance herself from President Biden's unpopularity on the economy. Can you blame her?
Do you know this is the Biden-Harris administration? Are you aware that this is the Biden-Harris administration? And she is indeed the vice president.
But if the president's policies on the economy were working, or if they were popular, wouldn't he still be the candidate?
You literally just had the chair of the CEA here who laid out a pretty robust point by point about the economy and what's has happened under the Biden-Harris administration. And I thought it was pretty convincing. Look, as far as anything that the vice president wants to do, or as she's talking about her policy that's campaign related, you would have to speak to her. One thing that I know for sure is that this president, this vice president are fighting very hard to make sure that the middle class is stronger. They wanted to make sure that we're working to cut taxes for the middle class, for working people, slashing cost for working families, as you have seen them do over and over again. This is something that we believe in. You heard Jared talk about announcements this week about lowering cost, and that is something that they believe in. And the contrast could not be more stark between, if anything, the contrast is between what Republicans want to do, MAGAnomics. You're talking about Bidenomics. MAGAnomics supercharge inflation. That's what they want to do. Raise taxes on the middle class by thousands of dollars. Send tax cuts through the roof. Protect corporate price gouging.
She's reading
cut
now,
Social
by the way.
Security. Cost millions their health care. And heap tax giveaways on billionaires and big corporations. That's the division there. That's where there's really...
She can't win that.
Nope. No. By the way, I also wouldn't use the phrase MAGAnomics because the right may take that and run with it. What you heard there from Karine Jean-Pierre is, Kamala, don't you dare try and separate yourself from Biden. At least not before January of next year. You're part of this. That's what I heard.
Then we go, this is, I think, Phil Wegman from the New York Post, I believe. Is it the New York Post? I forgot. New York Post or Real Clear Politics, one or the other. But relating to the article from Axios, it says Harris won't say this bluntly in public, but her advisors do so privately. She wants to break with Biden. First up, rising prices. This is part of a highly choreographed effort to redefine herself. Axios is not a conservative publication.
Right.
Just so you know, here's this back and forth, okay? Here we go.
All right.
This is a bit of a throwback, but the vice president has said that she was the last person in the room with President Biden ahead of his decision to order U.S. troops to pull out of Afghanistan. Was the vice president in full support of his decision to order that withdrawal and in full support of the way that it was implemented?
I mean, she answered that question herself. I don't have anything else to add. It sounds like she answered the question herself, right?
She said that she was in the room previously.
But didn't you also said she was in support?
I'm asking you if the president believes that the vice president was in full support of his decision to pull out.
I believe, and as you have seen them in the past 3.5 years, they've been partners, critical partners. It doesn't matter if it's domestic issues, also foreign policy issues.
Right there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's the problem that they have. She just said they're critical partners in the domestic and foreign policy issues as she's trying to separate herself. And we knew this was going to be a problem.
Well, we said it. We said it a few weeks ago.
Right.
And again, what you heard was this is in both of those cuts you just played. Here's what I heard, and I was following along yesterday. When they announced that there was going to be a press conference, I go, oh, I've got to drop everything. But what I heard, the takeaway from me from those two audio cuts you just played are, Kamala, you're Biden's partner in all this, and you can't separate yourself from it.
Yeah.
You can't. She's the vice. You know she's the vice president. Biden's vice president, right? Wow. She can't. She did more. Karine Jean-Pierre did more heavy lifting on that for the Trump campaign than anyone did yesterday on that issue. She right there just spelled it out. You can't separate. She's the current vice president. He's the current president. They've been partners all along. They'll remain partners until Biden is no longer president. There will be no separation.
You see the other story that was out that Politico had? That a lot of the Biden campaign people are now Harris campaign people, and they don't want to be.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of dissension inside the campaign.
Right.
That came from Politico. Again, not a conservative or Republican
Well,
outlet at all.
It makes sense. Again, we've been spelling it out. Go back in the timeline, and you don't have to go back too far. Just a matter of days. It's a few weeks. You go back, and no one on the left, no Democrats were screaming, "It must be Kamala." This has not been building a euphoria, some kind of calling to bring her to the top of the ticket. That was not ever the case, and now all of a sudden they want you to believe that it was. And so when you force people into the campaign that they don't have their heart in, there's no doubt you're going to have that kind of problem.
Does it remind you, for example, I mean, we have an election here in November, but we know that the primaries actually started, when you think about it, the beginning of candidates, wanting to come in to a normal, to a normal election, this is not a normal election with Trump running and then Biden running until he dropped out, until he was forced out,
right?
As an incumbent. Normally, you would have everybody jumping aboard last spring, a year and a half before, is when people start talking about, okay, this is almost like Harris is a year and a half before an election, just at the beginning of announcing that she's going to run, and even months before a debate, trying to figure out where she is going to stand, knowing that what her party stands for is a failure.
Right.
But this sounds like this is like way, way back at the beginning of a primary, and that's going to be a huge problem because the Bidens are not going to stand for her destroying his legacy, because in order for her, inside the Harris campaign, they believe that the only way she can win is not just co-opting Trump policy, the CAMAGA part of it,
right?
But she needs to destroy the legacy of Biden and separate herself from him completely,
right?
And that's almost impossible to do, which is why the Republicans need to not pay attention to what the surrogates say or anything else. You just keep running those ads about what she has said, in the past, over and over and over and over and over again in your ads.
She's the current nominee for the Democratic Party, and she's in exploratory committee mode.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's where she is.
That's really where she is, fully.
Yeah.
And
when that's right. They do that.
Yeah.
They sit there. They don't say we're running yet. We have an exploratory committee about whether we should run or not. That's
Testing
where she is. That's where she is right now. I need to test the waters to see what I'm going to do.
Right.
When in fact, what you need right now, because that's what's happening. She's saying, "Here's what I believe," and they're like, and the White House says, "No, she doesn't. She's always been along with Biden. They've been critical partners in all the domestic and foreign policy issues."
Right.
And then she comes on and says, "No, I'm different."
Right.
They're the infighting, and we said this would probably be a huge problem.
It was for her in 2019, in the fall of 2019. This is how her campaign ended exactly. On December 3rd of 2019, when she announced that she was ending her campaign during the 2020, she didn't make it to 2020, but it was the 2020 primary season. This was it. Internally, she couldn't keep it together. She was out of money. She didn't get one vote to where she is now. Not one vote. And she is in full exploratory committee mode. And by the way, it's not coming back good. The internals aren't coming back good. This is why she can't. It's not only her own lack of confidence in herself in speaking to the media. It's also she doesn't even know what she can say on the issues yet. Her campaign is floating things and wants you to believe the ludicrous idea that she is stronger on the border than Donald Trump, that she came up with the idea of not taxing tips. These are the things that you look at, and that she is all of a sudden pro-fracking. I mean, it's, can we say frackula? Those are the... Those are the...
Now, see, hold it. These
What?
are the kind of names that Trump needs to use.
Yeah, exactly. Come on.
Frackula's trying to get people to believe in Pennsylvania that she's pro-fracking.
Exactly.
Anybody in Pennsylvania believe that?
Right.
Anybody in Pennsylvania believe frackula?
Right.
What the frackula is going on?
Yeah, and on the border, she's Koala.
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 866
Koala Harris.
90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866 90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I'm sorry, but I know what I'm going out for on Halloween.
Yeah?
Frackula.
There you go. Instead of drinking blood, you drink the profits of oil companies. Blah.
I still want one Democrat, because all my Democrat acquaintances are completely quiet.
Yeah.
None of them are saying anything.
Yeah.
I just wonder how many Democrats actually believe that Kamala is pro-fracking. Come on.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here. You know, you think about it. I saw Andrew McCarthy's column yesterday, and it's true, and it's something that we've talked about, but he hit it and emphasized on it yesterday. There's still something coming up right before early voting starts. And that is Judge Merchan will sentence Trump to jail on September 18th.
Yeah, right.
And that's his point. He will sentence him to jail.
He thinks he will definitely sentence him to jail.
Yes. That's what he believes. He's going to sentence him to jail, and that's going to be what they're going to rally around at that point. Now, not only is he a convicted felon, but he's going to... Now, again, as we have stated before, and that's one of the reasons. I mean, the lawfare and the culture that exists in liberalism today, because that's such a bogus case that's going to be overturned.
Right, eventually.
But that's not the point. The point wasn't to put him in jail.
Nope.
The point was we can't win on the issues, so let's see if we can jail our political opponent. That's what's going on. And the culture exists in the Democratic Party with rogue judges and rogue prosecutors, and you saw it there. And you can't sit there and say, well, you guys are just he's a convicted felon and you guys just don't want to see a convicted felon. No, we are talking about the specific legal things that happened in all of these cases, especially in Merchan. There is no case. Nobody can tell you what he's guilty of. You don't know.
Right.
The court didn't tell you what he was guilty of.
Nope.
Because they didn't come to a unanimous verdict on anything, which is why that's going to be overturned. But that was only one of the things that people like longtime liberal and Democrat Alan Dershowitz has said, Jonathan Turley have said, and they've only hit, and they think it's an abomination. That's where, and Trump said it yesterday about the Banana Republic, about going after it. That's where it's viewed as the United States has passed a point where we never have passed before. That's why when people ask me, why are you voting for Trump, all these issues that they're talking about don't mean anything to. They will if Trump gets in. But they don't mean anything to me right now because this is about lawfare. This is about the authoritarianism of the Democratic Party. This is about the racism through identity politics of the Democratic Party. This is about the insanity of the radical transgender movement in society. This is about the anti-Semitism. Forget about the day-to-day domestic issues that they're talking about. And I know that inflation is still going to be the number one issue here in the election.
Yeah.
But for me, it's not. That's not the number one issue. With me, it's everything of where it is the pro-authoritarian, the pro-terrorist, the pro-socialist, the pro-wanting to destroy capitalism that you see from the Democratic Party that's a problem. Look, Ilhan Omar won her primary.
Yep.
The majority of Democrats in that district are pro-Hamas.
Yep.
You cannot get more pro-Hamas. They're pro-terrorist, anti-American.
Yep.
That's what I need to stop now. The other domestic issues,
because everything else goes away. If we don't stop this now, if they are rewarded by winning the election on November 5th, then all the issues are not going to even be relevant because this is how they will, and they will get away with it every single time. This is how they will behave. So the issues are, they fall away because it won't matter anymore. How dare you issue a dissenting opinion on anything that we're doing? We'll come after you if you're a political opponent, if you're a parent that opposes our agenda, we will come after you. It does not matter. It is battle number one. I've been saying we're at a crossroads for the better part of 2 years. And this election cycle is it. If you reward that kind of behavior, if the American people decide that it's okay to keep up this kind of behavior, to put your political opponent away in jail, then it will never be fixed. If we don't fix it now, it will never be fixed. You won't convince me otherwise.
I look, because people go, talk about Trump, but what about Tulsi Gabbard? What's going on with her? Former Democrat.
Yep.
Still, the TSA won't say whether she's on it or not.
Right.
The whistleblowers have come forward and said, no, she's on the terrorist watch list.
Right.
She's a damn Democrat, she's a former Democratic, excuse my damn there, but she's a former Democratic congresswoman from Hawaii that was a presidential candidate for the Democrats back in 2019.
Yep.
2020.
And she's issued opinions against Democrats. Again, she's issued opinions of dissent against her former party. And we can't have that.
Right. And so the TSA has not denied it.
Right.
All they've said is, oh, it's not derogatory if you're put on it. I just did an update on that because this is part of this is not part of the lawfare, but part of the weaponization of government.
Right. The same group of tactics that they use. Yeah.
Because why else would she be on there?
Right. Exactly.
If a former congresswoman and presidential candidate is on the terrorist watch list, I want to know why. I want transparency from the government to tell me why, and they won't. Why won't they?
Right.
Why won't they?
Because on one end, either she's actually a real threat to the point that she is on that list, or she's not. And either way, the American people deserve to know.
That's why I'm voting. That's why I'm voting for Trump.
Yep.
There are things that I don't like where the Republican Party is going. I don't like where the Trump campaign is going on certain populist economic issues, even though they seem to have dropped the whole tariff thing. And we wondered about that yesterday with the polling out on tariffs, that Americans do understand if you put a tariff on something, it's going to raise prices.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that the Democrats are using to say that Trump wants massive inflation because he would put tariffs across the board that would raise prices just as we've lowered inflation is lowered. That's why they're using that right now.
Right.
Trump hasn't talked about it. I don't believe he talked about it yesterday. I didn't hear him talk about tariffs.
Right.
I watched.
I didn't see
I watched
it.
about 45 minutes of it. He did out of the hour.
Right. Yeah.
But I didn't see him mention it, and it doesn't seem to be high on their list, and that's because the Cato Institute did that poll, which I'm sure they sent to the Trump administration, said, look, Americans right here, Americans aren't willing to pay $10 more for jeans to protect American jobs.
That's reality. You can say what you want politically, and people, will talk all day about buying American. People vote with their dollars, and right now, with this kind of inflation that's been going on, it's seemingly forever, far too long at the very least, with families, they have to vote with their dollar every day. They have to do what they have to do in order to supply what their family needs.
Right.
Period.
So all of a sudden, that seems to have been dropped as a campaign thing from them. So there are things I don't like about where Republicans are going, but I agree with Republicans about probably 70% of the time.
Yeah.
So they get my vote. Democrats, I agree with 0. I don't know an issue I agree with the Democrats on.
Right. Yeah.
And so neither. Look, in any human endeavor, whether it's a political endeavor or a business endeavor, nothing is 100% right. It never will be.
Right.
But you go with you go with the party that at least believes in the Constitution.
Yes.
But I read here, this is from the Firearm Industry Trade Association. They put out a statement. For America's gun owners, including the 22.3 million new first-time gun owners since 2020, the latest shocking news about former U.S. Representative and former Democratic presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard, the Democrat from Hawaii, being placed on the U.S. government's Transportation Safety Administration's Quiet Skies list should be gravely concerning. The knowledge that former Congresswoman Gabbard is on the Quiet Skies list only came to light because of whistleblowers concerned of political retribution for her outspoken stances against the Biden-Harris administration. The track record of the federal government and watch lists is dismal. Federal agencies have abused these lists, which are ripe for targeting political opposition. And when we've seen the weaponization of government as we have, I don't give anybody the benefit of the doubt anymore.
Right.
And he says, but which are ripe for targeting political opposition, including Second Amendment supporters and gun owners. The quick recap is that former Representative Gabbard recently had some choice words for the Biden-Harris administration on Fox News and criticized the now Democratic nominee, Vice President Kamala Harris, as a weak candidate for holding flawed positions. That's her First Amendment right to do so. Laura Ingraham from Fox pointed out the questionable timing of her placement on the government watch list, saying, so what exactly did Tulsi do to get added to the terrorist watch list? It came the day after she criticized the Biden administration. The former Congresswoman was blunt. She said, this is a pure act of political retaliation. There's no other way to put it. The very next day, after my conversation with you on the air, warning the American people about how dangerous a Kamala Harris presidency could be, I was placed on this domestic terror watch list, which is called the Quiet Skies list under the Department of Homeland Security. To now have my own government now turn around and put me on a domestic terror watch list, it hits to the core, and this is the ultimate sense of betrayal. She explained that everything changed for her and her family since being added to the watch list on July 23rd. They endure excessive hours of long security screenings at airports and have multiple federal air marshals on their flights. Representative Gabbard explained the major concern is the unknown, saying this is the real pain and stress that's been caused to both me and my family in this whole situation. day and night, wondering if and what government institution and agency is monitoring my phone calls, surveilling me in a moment of my travels, knowing that they may be looking into some kind of excuse or derogatory action to come after me. You know, the TSA responded. They wouldn't respond. We're not going to say either way, but if you're on it, it's not derogatory.
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah, that's bogus.
Let me ask you this. Is it easier to get a warrant from a judge to tap your telephone if you're on the terrorist watch list?
Yeah. There's no doubt it is.
Where you don't have to explain
right
to anybody why you're on the terrorist watch list?
Right. If they don't have to explain to anybody, why would they have to explain to a judge?
Yep. And they need to explain this.
Absolutely.
And Republicans need to be pounding on this when they get back from vacation.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
Because this is absolutely reprehensible.
It cannot go on because you, again, and I don't believe Tulsi Gabbard is a threat. There's zero evidence that she is a threat. But let's just look at it for what it is. A former lawmaker has been put on the terror watch list.
Veteran.
She's a veteran.
Still in the Army.
Exactly. So now, tell me, because if she's a threat, then, man, to the point of being on that watch list, I need to know why she's actually a threat. And if she's not, I need to know why in the hell she's on that list.
Yep. Either way.
Because as a former lawmaker, she probably has connections. As somebody with military experience, she damn sure has training. If you're telling me she's a threat, I need to know more. And if she's not, I need to know a hell of a lot more.
Well, if she is a threat, I don't want her on a plane.
Exactly. Why wouldn't she be banned?
Right.
Why wouldn't there be a greater investigation into her behavior beyond this?
Right.
It's one or the other.
Yep.
This isn't somebody from another nation. This isn't somebody that just posted on social media. This is a former United States lawmaker who has military experience. You tell me why she's on that list. And if I'm the entire, everybody in the House should be concerned about this. Every American should be concerned about this.
I'm sure what you'll hear is Republicans that are furious about it. And like we see on the lawfare, Democrats are all for it.
Yep. And they'll dismiss it.
Yeah.
Because here's what will happen. They'll remove her quietly from the list by the time lawmakers come back from their August break. Well, she's no longer on the list. Well, she's no longer on the list. Why was she on the list? It doesn't go away. You need to explain it. How does that happen? All of a sudden, she's a threat, and now she's not?
Hey,
because if you do it that way, you're telling me, that tells me that there's an even greater problem that you can just throw somebody up on this list and behave this way toward, again, a former lawmaker and somebody with military experience, and then just all of a sudden, willy-nilly, when the pressure is on, just take them off of the list. They're either a threat or they are not.
Without any due process.
Exactly.
For her.
And there needs to be somebody, that a number of somebodies that answer for this.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. You and I both asked a question yesterday. We said, why isn't the Tulsi Gabbard story bigger? Much bigger. And it's because Congress is in session. because I guarantee Jordan and Comer would be going crazy about this right now.
Oh, yeah.
They'd be holding a press conference in the morning going, what in the world is this?
Yep.
And, we're going to demand, they're supposed to be accountable to Congress, but Congress needs to pound on this and bring whoever is the head of Homeland Security is Mayorkas.
Yep.
But they need to bring it. They need to say, is this happening? Because they keep wanting to say, well, we don't give out. Well, I don't care whether you give out. You give out in this case. She's okay with it.
Yep.
If she's not on it, there's no security issue. If she is on it, tell the American public so everybody knows, especially when she's telling you it's okay.
Right.
You tell us what the problem is.
I want to also know the process. I want to know the process.
Yes, I do. I want to know the process.
I want to know exactly, because you mentioned, and this is extremely important. There is no due process here, and then all of a sudden they can just say, well, we don't have to talk about it. Yeah, you do. You need to answer to the American people.
Yeah.
We need to know what the process is for people getting onto that list. I want to know exactly what led to that. I want to especially know what led to her being on that list, because if you go through that process and it shows me something or shows me nothing, which is what I suspect it will show me, then it will show all Americans how easy it is to put somebody on that list, even somebody with her kind of profile.
And there's no excuse not to give out the information.
Right.
It violates national security. How? If she's not on it, then it's over and done.
Yep.
The whistleblowers were wrong.
Yep.
And she was wrong. And then you have to investigate whether she's lying about having these weights that started on July 23rd in order to get through, and that air marshals are on the plane.
Right.
But if it is true, we want to know why. She's a public figure. We want to know why.
Right.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. Let's go to Steve in Arkansas about the situation with Tulsi Gabbard and the TSA. Hi, Steve. You're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, gentlemen. And as always, we are doomed.
We are. We certainly are.
What's up?
I'm a veteran of over 30 years of service. I held a security clearance for the vast majority of that. As an officer in the Army, she holds a security clearance. As a former member of the House of Representatives, she holds a security clearance. She's been vetted by the DOD and the FBI twice.
Yeah.
If they missed something, what was it? And if there's a viable reason, once you hold a security clearance, something comes up that would put that clearance into question, you're flagged, and your clearance is usually suspended, or as a member of the Army, your superiors are notified that your security clearance is in question. Has that happened? What's the reason?
She's probably been vetted more than that, because if you have to, for example, if she ever met with a president or vice president, Democrat or Republican, she had to go through another probably Treasury Department security clearance, which is Secret Service, and the FBI, again, if you're going to be close to a president. I know because I've gone through that twice.
Yep.
Two times is the bare minimum that she's been vetted.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right,
yeah. Has it been put in question? There's got to be a reason, and if there's not a reason, then
the
American know.
And did they revoke her rank? Have they? I mean, if something else happened, because certainly we would know this. All of this, if she were reprimanded by the military and demoted, we would know this. And so that hasn't happened. So it warrants her being on this list, yet there are no other signs that no other signs that she's a threat at all. In fact, only the opposite, that she is anything but a threat.
And depending on her position in the Army, if she loses her clearance, she could lose her commission.
Yeah, that's what I mean is we would know, we would hear something about that, and let's just assume, okay, if that happened, she wouldn't talk about it, she wasn't proud of it, or whatever happened. Well, we would still be able to find that out. That would be known by now. And so that has not happened. I haven't seen anywhere anybody making that case. There has been no measures taken against her other than what's going on right now with her being on this list. So if there is something different that we're not aware of, then please tell the American people. Again, we'll step back and say, okay, fine. We don't know what the truth is. Tell me what the threat is. Tell me exactly what the threat is and what the process was for putting her on that list.
Yeah.
And it's that simple.
And first off, tell us if she's on the list or not on the list.
Right.
There is no right to privacy here.
No.
And if she isn't on the list, there's no security situation at all. And if she is on the list, simply tell us she's on the list, but you can't tell us why, and then you've got to report to the probably one of the behind closed doors in front of the House of Representatives,
right?
Because the House of Representatives are going to want to know, okay, they're going to do this to anybody else out there that's in the House of Representatives if they're doing it to somebody who was formerly in the House?
Thanks, Steve.
But yeah, you've got to answer the question
exactly, and if she's was on the list and is no longer on the list, I also need to know what the process was. I want to know. I want to know what the full process is of how she gets on the list and why she would be taken off the list. Because if she's still on the list when this pressure is coming from more and more press about this, and then all of a sudden after the pressure is applied here from the media, reports of all this, she's taken off the list. You're not going to be able to explain that otherwise. You just can't.
You've had Representative Burchett of Tennessee that wrote a letter to the TSA saying we want a meeting. Representative Doug Lamburn of Colorado, former Representative Mark Walker, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., numerous others have come to her defense, calling for her withdrawal from the program, demanding an explanation. Look, I'm not calling for her withdrawal from the program. I'm asking for an explanation. I have to approach this as if I don't know anything.
Yeah, that's my whole position.
Right,
I can't tell you if she's a threat or not.
Right.
Now you need to tell me why she's on that list, because at the worst case scenario, we have a U.S. military officer that is a threat. And you need to show me why she's a threat. Because we have problems and they go far beyond the end. If you can prove that she's a threat, then this goes far beyond getting on a plane.
As for Republican members of the State House of Representatives, in which Gabbard served from 2002 to 2004 in Hawaii, wrote a letter to the TSA director, and here's what they said. Quote, how can your agency assume you have the power to put a congresswoman on your terrorist watch list and not explain yourself? That's it right there.
Mm-hmm.
The people of Hawaii love Tulsi. The Democrats don't. And your actions have offended us for your attempt to ruin her reputation without explanation. Again, as leaders in the state of Hawaii, we remind you that this is not China or Russia, and our government is not to overstep the boundaries that have been set up by our U.S. Constitution, nor should ever attempt to weaponize its regulatory power. The letter was signed by Representatives Gene Ward, Diamond Garcia, David Alkos, and Elijah Pirik. As the story continues to gain traction in conservative media, this is from Spectrum News, Gabbard supporters have posted that Gabbard was targeted not just for her recent comments, but for a back and forth between Gabbard and Harris during a 2019 debate that they claimed ended Harris's presidential campaign. You know, that's been all over the place. Have you seen that one? That's been all over social media.
Yeah.
But I'll say right here, this is how can your agency assume you have the power to put a congresswoman on your terrorist watch list, actually former congresswoman, on your terrorist watch list and not explain yourself? You got to explain yourself because with the weaponization that we've seen already of the federal government, when you've seen the attempt to censor, when you see what the 51 intelligence agencies did after the suggestion from the now Secretary of State that they lied about the Hunter Biden laptop that the Biden administration was involved in, when you see that the president's national security director was in on the Russia collusion hoax when he was part of the Hillary Clinton campaign. Remember that?
Yeah.
When you have all these things going on, when you have the targeting of parents that are upset, and it all happened because of a sexual assault in a school.
Yep.
From a transgender woman on another woman, which means a guy on a woman in a bathroom. And the FBI, the whistleblowers, said, we're in the parking lot taking license plates.
Because you're in the way of the agenda.
Of parents. Remember the letter that went back and forth?
Yep.
Also,
the
whole domestic terrorism thing.
Right.
I mean, this is, most Americans, it's out of control. We know Democrats accept it. This is part of the authoritarian reason, the narrative that's accepted now by most Democrats, because there's no outrage. I don't know a Democratic voter. I don't know anyone who was upset about this in the Democratic Party. I don't know a voter. I haven't seen anyone. I haven't seen an opinion. I've seen an opinion in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram that talks about the fact that we need the unity ticket, that the absurd unity ticket of Michelle Obama and Greg Abbott.
Yeah.
And I still haven't seen a Democrat upset about the weaponization of government and everything that has happened over the last couple of years. I don't see a Democrat voter that's upset about it.
No.
I don't know one myself, not one.
No.
They're just quiet. They just don't say anything. So are they intimidated to talk about it?
And this story has been out there for days on Tulsi Gabbard. This cannot go away. There has to be a full investigation. And it has to be brought to the surface for all the American people to see. We are at a critical crossroads. There is absolutely no question about that. And if the Democrats are rewarded for the types of behaviors that we just lined out by winning elections, then as a nation, we won't come back from that. I'm convinced.
We've gone to places where we've never gone to before. That's why I said this election to me is not about the day-to-day things that we've talked about. I've said this. I'm not happy about it, but I don't think either party is serious about the debt. But any spending that's going to happen is going to be buffered by the fact that you can't do it anymore because of where we are. You can't reach those levels before because of inflation.
Right.
They can't do it.
Right.
You're seeing it right now.
The moment you ramp up spending the way that they did in COVID again, then you're going to see inflation hit harder and harder and harder, in the political pressure of people like the mother we heard from before on MSNBC. They're killing us without saying that they're killing us.
Yeah, they're killing us without killing us, I think is what she actually said.
Well, but she went back and she explained it.
Right.
And she said what they're doing is they're killing us without saying they're killing us, which means you don't talk about it. No. You just do it. And it's because the Democratic Party can't say it out loud. No, she's pro-fracking. She's pro-border security.
As we have said, every Democrat knows that's a lie. Every Democrat knows it's a lie. But like I said, those day-to-day things is not why I'm voting in this election. That's not
Because you
the
can't even get
majority
to those.
reason at all.
You can't even get to those until we deal with all of this.
Yeah. The stink and the rot inside the bureaucracy that even existed when Trump was president that worked against him.
Yes. It was very much alive.
Unelected bureaucrats doing things that are absolutely reprehensible.
I wish I could find the article that, and I read it. It was right as Trump was being sworn in. It would have been January, February, maybe March, but right as he was coming into his presidency in 2017. And it talked about all the people that were in positions that were put into place during the Obama years that are part of the agenda that didn't require Senate confirmation, that people don't even think of, and they're going to be deeply embedded for a long, long time. We saw the evidence of that. We were seeing the evidence of that when I read that article the first time in the spring of 2017 when they were ramping up after he became president, the Russian hoax, made it official, put a special prosecutor on it who bumbled and fumbled, but that didn't matter. The ending didn't matter. It was about hanging the doubt for no reason at all, based on lies, a series of lies that was facilitated by people at the top of deep state. The brass at the FBI made that happen. They made that happen.
And the intelligence agencies knew
what
Hillary was doing.
They
knew what Hillary was doing.
They knew it.
They knew it.
And nobody put a stop to it.
That's why I'm voting for Trump.
Yep.
Not the day-to-day stuff. It's not the economic stuff.
No.
It's the survival of the Constitution.
This is the first battlefield. If we don't get past this, then everything else falls.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Just going through the Hill.com here. Harris in the hot seat over pro-Trump proposal that the whole thing on no tax for tips.
Yeah.
That Democrats, this is the Hill.com. Again, not a Republican media outlet in any way, said that they were taken completely off guard by it. It's not something that we saw coming at all. And it's like she's getting pounded on both sides for it. Now, it's not going to happen, folks.
Yeah, no.
Why won't it happen? Because really of the way the 14th Amendment looks at taxes.
Yeah.
You're taxed on your income of a certain level.
Right. Right.
And I don't like the proposal from the Republicans because if you're going to lower taxes, you lower it for all people in that economic situation.
Right, exactly.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Hello. All right. What am I looking at here? I wanted to find the audio. I found the audio.
Okay. All right. All right.
You know, we talked about many times before about with everything that's going on now, with inflation that we've seen, with the insanity, You know, the anti-Semitism that comes from the Democratic Party and comes from this White House. Through the support of Iran, the backdoor support of Iran, which is just you can't believe it. If you've been alive as long as we've been alive, you're just like, this. It's completely and totally insane. When you see the whole border situation, you say to yourself, Trump's not the perfect candidate. But if Trump wasn't the candidate, let's say it was DeSantis.
Yeah.
Or let's say it was J.D. Vance. Still going to be only a point or two difference.
Yeah.
Even if it was DeSantis, you're not going to see 60% for DeSantis and 40% for Harris.
Right.
And you say, what in the world is going on in Democrats' heads? How can you have the inflation that you had? How can you have the weaponization of government that everybody acknowledges is there?
Yeah.
How can you have the lawfare where the majority of people believe that Trump is being targeted?
Right.
How can you have a candidate like Harris, who is completely maybe one of the biggest intellectual lightweights you could possibly ever put in, that Democrats loathed her just a month ago? How in the world? We'll go with the Fox News one that people seem to be talking about today.
All right.
Trump up by 1. How can Harris be down by just 1, or how could Harris be up by 1 or 2? How can that happen?
Right.
I'll tell you how that can happen at the latest, the Phoenix rally that Kamala Harris had a couple of days ago. Turning Point USA was there with their reporters and decided to ask questions to those Harris supporters who were there for the rally. Did I say convention? Therefore, the rally. Here we go.
Today, we're trying to find out from the attendees what Kamala Harris's greatest accomplishment has been as VP.
I mean, honestly, I'm not too into politics. I'm just here for the vibe.
Becoming the first female vice president. So becoming the VP is the best accomplishment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Being a good person.
Being a good person?
Yeah. She's I don't know. She seems really good for women.
Harris is there with the energy. She has a lot of enthusiasm, so it's important to get behind her. What is Kamala's top accomplishment, you think?
I can't say anything right now. Give me a second.
Her top contributions to policy or policy as VP.
I wasn't in on the policy making decisions with President Biden, so I don't know.
Her favorite policies. Oh my gosh. See, I wish they would tell us more about that, because I honestly don't know. I know she's done some good work with immigration, even though they say opposite.
What do they say?
Well, what is it? She's the border czar.
She's the fake border czar.
It's her fault that all these immigrants are coming over, to cross the border right now, which I don't think they are.
People have been saying that Kamala is the border czar, or whatever that means. Is there an issue at the border? Has Kamala done anything about it? Or was there not anything to do about it, and so they're just kind of making things up?
So I don't think there's an issue with the border at all. I feel like, yes, illegal immigrants are coming to America, but that's what America's all about, is to come to America and live that American dream, because America isn't just for the whites. It's not just for the blacks. It's not just for the Mexicans. No, it's for everyone around the world. We're supposed to be a country of letting people come in and do what they'd like. I mean, I understand that with they say the border crisis is causing all these drug issues and it's causing crime, but in my opinion, there's crime everywhere. You can go to New York, you can go to Canada, you can go anywhere across the world, and there's going to be crime regardless.
Yeah, it's a total. They're blowing it way out of proportion, huh?
Oh, for sure.
Would you say there's a problem at the border at all?
So there is a problem at the border. I really would wish for her to go visit the border while she's here. I don't know what's on her schedule and whatnot. but I mean, there's work to do, and I can't dismiss that. There's problems to fix, but my personal wish would be for her to visit the border with the governor.
There you go.
Yeah. It's for everybody. It's, we want everybody to come here and do what they want. Oh, you mean like the Russians?
Wow.
Listen, I'm going home to put some plastic over my windows and tape it up there. You guys do whatever you want because we're doomed. These people are voting. These are voters. I don't really know. And then the one guy with the virtue signaling. I don't know because I wasn't in the meetings with Biden.
That guy. Oh.
Really? Yeah,
by the way, I know that guy.
Yeah.
Not that I know him.
Yeah.
I know
that kind of guy.
You
yeah.
know that kind of guy, don't you?
Yeah. And let's face it, Biden wasn't in those meetings with Biden. So this entire thing is exactly, we've seen this. This is what you just heard here is the prime representation, example of the willfully ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
All of these individuals own a computer that they can take with them all day, every day. They can use that computer at will to find out things and stuff. Facts. And yet they don't. And yet they're going to vote for her, and they can't tell you why. Wow. Even with sheep, a couple of them will try and cut from the herd. That's why you always have a good dog. You have a good border collie. Get a good, fast border collie. Keep those sheep in line. Well, the Democratic Party, they got plenty of border collies. Liberal media, border collies. Roo-roo. Keep those sheep in line. Don't let them out. Don't let them get all informed.
Well,
Remember Obama a few years ago? It was several years ago, several years ago when he was doing the commencement address. I forget where it was. And he was telling these college graduates, now don't go out and get all informed. He was telling them, stay away from the internet.
Yes.
Don't Google. Whatever you do, don't Google.
Yeah.
How dare you
I do
fact
remember
check.
that.
Remember that?
Yes.
Oh, man, we shredded that and had fun with it for a while but it's a very serious point in that they don't want you to be informed. They don't want you to actually be educated. They want you to be indoctrinated. They will call it higher education. It's a higher education in terms of their agenda. It is indoctrination. It is, we need you to be informed of what we want you to know and what we want you to do. And this is how you get so many people that now occupy roles in the federal government and elsewhere, all over, in newsrooms, everywhere, that have the same mindset. If you ever watched Fight Club, it's just like Tyler Durden. You go everywhere. You look over there. Well, there's the server. There's the busboy. There's everybody. Well, they're in line. They already know. They know. They're making the soap. They understand what this is all about. They know it. You don't have to tell them. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. In full play. 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, she wasn't invited to the dance, and now she's the prom queen. Magic. Ta-da. That's how it happens.
And that's the thing, though. Everybody knows that, though.
Yeah. They really aren't. At least the one guy said there's a lot of work to do on the border. There's a problem he's acknowledging a problem with the border. At least there was one saying something that I was like, okay, all right. He's not fully lost. He's not fully handed it over. But that border collie's right behind him, I guarantee you. Hey. How dare you say there are problems with the border? This is not a new phenomenon. This is not new in American politics. It's not new that people go, well, I like the way he smiles. I like, whatever. It's not. Aesthetics is a big part of it. We said it. We've been saying it for a long, long time. It's it's not new. This is not new. Remember the whole thing? I like Ike. I remember that. Then it made it into a the Happy Days episode.
Fonz.
I like Ike. My bike
likes Ike.
Likes Ike. Oh my gosh! It's
yeah, but it reminded me a couple of years. Well, more than a couple of years later, when Obama was running.
Yeah,
and you had the whole Happy Days crew. Endorsing Obama, and the only reason that they could give was that he's black.
It's skin color.
And they couldn't give one other reason except he's black.
Right.
And we need the first black president.
I mean, Tom Hanks.
Yeah, did the same thing.
I know what skin color is. I didn't mean to disrupt your campaign party. And we said, he went on for the better part of 10 minutes, and it was all on skin color.
I know.
And we said, well, if we were part of the Obama campaign, we would call him up and say, Mr. Hanks, thank you so much for the endorsement. Any way you could do that one more time, one more take, just one more take, and mention a few qualifications of the individual and not focus completely 100% on skin color? That's just us.
I did see the documentary here in the last year about Ron Howard, and Ron Howard did the same thing.
Yeah.
About Obama, black, and his brother Clint.
Yep.
Much more conservative and Republican.
And their TV dad Andy, he was part of that. Remember?
Oh yeah, the TV dad. Yeah.
Andy
The same
Griffith's
thing.
show.
But I mean, it seems like a real great family because they were talking about Ron Howard and they're talking to Clint and everything else and their relationship back and forth.
These people.
Neither do I. Neither do I.
I like Henry Winkler.
No, so do I.
But it's how you behave if you're going to get into the arena of ideas, then and you're going to behave that way. Sorry, that's not going to fly with me.
Well, it's the same thing that we did earlier with Stephen A. Smith.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love it. Why she needs to be out there. Why don't you think she is, Stephen? Why isn't she out there?
Right. Right.
And you're going to vote for it. Why? Is it? Are you voting for Kamala or Kamega? Who are you voting for here? What?
Right.
Oh, the Hill.com article about the Democrats completely thrown off because of her, tax for tips.
Oh, yeah.
And they're just like, we don't know what to do with this or whatever.
Right.
And we didn't know this was coming. And they're upset. I'm like, upset? Well, why aren't you upset about pro-fracking? And I'm like, oh, because she hasn't said it specifically. Only her campaign has.
Which goes back to what we said earlier. We bring it together. And she basically, and you said, she's in very early stages of campaigning mode. And basically, I phrased it as this. She's in exploratory committee mode, and she's already the nominee.
Right.
And we're just a matter of a few months away from Election Day. And she's still in exploratory committee mode. That's how that happens. Because your campaign floats it, and I think you're right. I think you've been right all along. She doesn't say it. Her campaign does.
And I've always thought that gives her plausible deniability where I think one of the things they wish to do is say different things to different audiences.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Because here's when she speaks next week, if she coming on and say, I am pro-fracking.
Right.
We need to unharness all of the fossil fuels here in the United States while also meeting all climate change targets.
Right. And protecting the lizards in West Texas.
And protecting the lizards in West Texas. We need to tap into. Can she say that? She can't say that.
No.
She hasn't said it. Her campaign has, and that gives her plausible deniability. But when she says it, like the no tax for tips, all of a sudden the Democratic media is all over it, and the Democrats are all over going, we don't know what's going on. This came out of nowhere.
Right.
You mean the pro-fracking didn't come out of nowhere?
Right.
The I'm going to be tougher on the border than Trump is?
Right.
That didn't bother you? Well, that's a commercial. She actually hasn't said it. Well, she did say it.
Right.
That one she did say in a rally. That Donald Trump really doesn't want to do the border. She does.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if she said. I think she said secure the border, not close the border. And remember,
right,
secure
right.
the border for them is to let everybody in
Yeah,
who
make it
wants
secure
to come in.
Make it secure for
Right.
the people coming across.
Right, exactly.
Mhm.
But nobody buys it.
Yeah. Well, it's again Mayorkas. The border's secure. He didn't finish the sentence for anyone who wants to come across.
Right. 866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. When driving, you need to manage the space around your vehicle so that there's enough space to allow you to adjust when traffic conditions change. The space ahead of your vehicle is the most important and one of the easiest to monitor and adjust as needed. One rule of thumb is to allow at least 1 second for each 10 feet of vehicle length at speeds below 40 miles per hour. At greater speeds, add an additional second. It's impossible to keep other drivers from tailgating you, but there are some things you can do to make it safer, such as increasing your following distance, avoiding quick lane changes, and slowing down. There are also several things you should do to ensure that there is plenty of space between the side of your vehicle and other vehicles. Don't hug the center line, avoid hugging the right side of the road, and avoid traveling alongside other vehicles in strong winds, especially crosswinds. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, yeah, I've gotten the question.
Yeah.
You've gotten the question, and I guess we have to answer it since nobody else will. We will after the bottom of the hour.
Okay.
How can Harris have so many people supporting her? How can that happen? And we played the cut of some of the rally goers in Arizona.
Yeah.
And it was just like, wow.
Yeah.
Completely clueless. But in there is a reason, and when you break it down about Democrats and liberalism, it makes perfect sense.
Right.
So we'll get that coming up here in just after the bottom of the hour. What was the other thing I wanted to bring up? There was something else. Oh yeah, you see the media finally questioning about Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
It's like
right.
it's all over now. I mean,
Hey, does everybody remember Hunter Biden?
Yeah, it's just
yeah.
Now the media's interested. It's like, well, Biden's out, so it doesn't matter.
He's not useful at all to them anymore. So,
right now we can
we can move forward on it.
That's going to be an interesting thing now because after he speaks on Monday, they don't need him.
No, you're right.
They don't need him.
You're right.
You know and if she starts going against it, because that's what the campaign wants. The campaign wants her to distance herself from what Biden has been doing, as the White House is saying, as the White House said yesterday, no, she's been behind us and a part of every single domestic policy and foreign policy in there. She said it specifically yesterday.
Yep.
That's the official word from the White House. Well, if she starts insulting him and saying he was wrong on everything, what, is he going to drop her?
Right. Yeah.
I want a new
How's
vice
that work?
president for the last couple of months?
We have a line open. 1-866-90 Red Eye. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning as we go through this campaign. And I don't think I've ever done this before, and I think it's really because I don't know why it happened, why I decided to do it this time. I don't think there was ever a conscious decision, but it's just every single day, I know the one thing on my mind is, okay, who won the day today?
Yeah.
In the
Right.
campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just started doing it every day. I've just been looking for it. Okay, just of great interest. And when I make that statement, who's won the campaign for the day, it's at the end of the day, who's on the defensive.
Yeah, right.
That's what you always want to keep your opponent on the defensive. When Trump what we believe made some errors a couple of weeks ago. We said, no, unforced error. Look at the end of the day, everybody's pounding on him.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a way that you don't have to let that happen.
Right.
Now, every single day since Waltz has been in, every single day has been a win for the Trump campaign.
Yep.
And yesterday, again, was a success for him and his speech. Because at the end of the day, you really couldn't get anything. In fact, here's what the Harris campaign put out yesterday. Trump suggests teachers and military service members don't have real jobs because they're not private sector.
Yeah.
Did Trump suggest that?
No.
That they don't have real jobs?
No.
Let's go through it. Are you ready? Here we go. All right. What Trump actually said.
Neither she nor her running mate is the beauty, isn't he? He signed a bill. He wants tampons in boys' bathrooms. I don't think so. Tampons. But they've never held a private sector job in their entire professional careers, and it's no wonder they're both socialists. They're actually beyond socialists. I think they skipped over socialists. That's why I think when people find out, because you don't know who these people are, I think when people find out who they are, I personally don't think they can do well in the election.
There you go. And the Harris campaign put out, Trump suggests teachers and military service members don't have real jobs because they're not, quote, private sector. You notice only the private sector is in quotes, which means everything else is wrong.
Yeah.
It wasn't said.
Right.
And so the best that they could do, where they're easily fact-checked, they throw it out, but it doesn't stick because it's false. And so if that's what they had to do, Trump has the win.
Yep.
And Trump stuck to, and everybody knows, because we've got criticism for it in the past, because we like to put on our political consultant hats, we nitpick constantly.
Oh, yeah.
And I said the nitpick for Trump yesterday, it went too long. And the things that were necessary, like welcoming all the different, people there, I don't care about. But
it's the game.
But
you have to go
no,
through.
but he's got to. But he's got to do it. It's necessary to do that. I understand it. But I want 20 minutes, 100% exactly the way that I want it.
Or else. Or else we keep saying it.
Or else there's hell to pay. But no, it was a good day, and J.D. Vance was great yesterday. And meanwhile, you look at it, whether it's MSN. Let's go to MSNBC here. Do I have the right one? Got to make sure I got everything correct here. Let's get to here. It is. All right, this is on MSNBC. Okay, yesterday. Here we go.
What you see Republicans doing at the RNC and various campaigns is here's what gas costs, here's what milk costs, here's what an apartment cost on January 20th, 2021, and here's what it costs now. And those numbers are really bad for the Harris campaign.
That's on MSNBC. That's huge.
Yep.
Because everybody knows it at that point. Let's go to CNN, okay? Because they're going to the liberal networks.
Yep.
If you want to get an example, okay, how's the scale going for the day? Who's winning? Here we go.
Economic experts aren't going to decide the election. Actual working class American voters are, and they know full well how much more expensive their life is today than it was under Donald Trump. She's going to have a very difficult time, the vice president, getting any separation from President Biden on this, because she cast the tie-breaking vote in the U.S. Senate to put a $1.9 trillion stimulus into the U.S. economy. It was at that point that inflation took off back in 2021. And that was one of two key issues that Biden and Harris's approval ratings under 40% for most of this presidency. So I don't think she's going to be able to get away from Biden on it. She had a direct hand in it. And people well remember how they felt economically under Trump and how they have felt economically for 4 years under Biden and Harris. And that comparison looms large.
Now, of course, that's Scott Jennings. He's a Republican, but that's on CNN. And if you've seen on CNN, they have had, whether it's, the problem that the CNN has is they're losing their liberal audience because they are very articulate Republicans on. Lee Zeldin, who ran in New York for governor and only lost by 8 points, blew everybody away how close he came in the last election to winning the governorship, and Scott Jennings, who was great. And you see them talking, and the liberals don't really have a response to them. So you look at that, from the day yesterday, and you're like, okay, but Gary, you did play the you did play that audio of the rally and the clueless Democrats out there. Well, if you want to understand why there is the support for Harris that exists in the polls, because you look at it, and we have stated on the issues, it's still landslide numbers. There was another poll came out yesterday. It's not really that close on the economy. We didn't buy that poll that said Harris was leading on the economy, and it's completely false. But understand that the reason there's support, even if it was DeSantis, if you were a DeSantis person, DeSantis is only going to be up by, I don't know, but he's not going to be up by 10.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Youngkin, if he was the candidate for president on the Republican side, is not going to be up by 10.
Right.
J.D. Vance, because everybody now, he's been so articulate. Well, he should be, you've heard that, he should be the presidential candidate. He's not going to be up by 10. Nobody's going to be up by 10. One of the reasons is you have a Democratic Party, and you have liberals in this country that their entire party is based on identity politics, which is false imagery. All of it's false imagery. You saw it with the woman at the one rally that was asked a question about the border. Well, there's really no problem at the border at all. There's no problem. Nothing. I don't believe what's going on at the border. Well, that comes right from Mayorkas saying the border is secure. And so there is this the entire when you base your entire party on identity politics, that's false imagery to begin with. Look, part of anti-Semitism is the Jews control everything, right?
Yep.
Do they? No. The Jews control the world.
It's such but this is seriously, it's so hard to get in the mind that kind of mindset. You and I were talking about it earlier off the air. The mindset of that kind of hate, honestly, anti-Semitism and hate. I mean, you just really have to go full on. You really do.
Yeah. Everything is victim-oppressor relationship. All blacks are victim, all whites are racist.
Yeah.
Is that true? No, that's false imagery. It is. But when you practice identity politics, and they've been doing this now since I've been in talk radio, and we talk about the modern identity politics movement that I believe, this is, in my humble opinion, began with the whole, Justice Thomas, and then went on to the beginning of modern talk radio in this country, which is, I'll call it the adversarial talk radio, which means you are, you pick up opinion and you defend it, which really came in the late 80s in this country. And when you had a number of black conservative talk show hosts that rose to the top, and they were the first targets, that they're not really black. And it's interesting that the modern identity politics, the modern racist movement in this country actually started against blacks. And so, as we said, the modern identity politics movement, which is where you judge people by groups and not individuals, number one is false imagery to begin with, because people don't deal that way in the real world. Nobody does that in the real world. In the real world, everybody treats everybody else as an individual. And in business, everybody treats everybody. Capitalism, that's the great thing about capitalism. People cooperate voluntarily with each other. Why? And they attempt to please each other. Hey, I'm selling you this. Okay, I'm going to sell you this. You're paying me this. I'm happy. I'm getting the product. I'm happy.
Everybody's acting in their own self-interest.
Everybody's acting in their own self-interest and getting along and treating each other, as we know, as individuals. That's what actually happens in society. We aren't a society of groups. We are a society of individuals. So the false imagery is what the Democratic Party has been selling now for almost 40 years. And so you're going to have people that jump on it. And so you have Harris out there who they were just insulting. Everybody hated her. But they can switch on a dime because it's not about substance. It's about this is the next image that we have to sell. It doesn't matter if she's an empty vessel. All that matters is she's the new identity that we're going to sell. And you heard some of the people in the crowd, well, she's a woman. Well, she's a woman. Well, she's a woman. Well, she's a woman. Are you kidding me?
Right. No, it's
That's actually immoral to say you're going to vote for somebody only based on a physical characteristic is absolutely immoral. You vote if you would have said, I believe because she thinks about this way, she thinks about this, and I agree with this, and I agree with that, and I agree with this. No, she's a woman. And you and I went through this in 2008 when we asked for Democrats only.
Yeah.
And it was during the primary, and it was unbelievable because the entire show was all Democrats calling, why do you want Hillary? Because we need the first woman. Why do you want Obama? Because we need the first black. Finally, when we, after a couple of hours, said we can't get anybody to talk one issue, remember we got one guy who called and said, well, Hillary won't keep us out of wars and Obama will.
I mean, imagine this. Imagine you're the candidate and everybody is saying that about you.
Oh, my God. Jeez. I'd be insulted.
You work all of your life to get there. Now, I know Kamala Harris didn't work at all, actually, to get anywhere. But imagine that she did. Imagine you work all your life to get all the way to the top. You're there, and it's, because he's a guy. I'm sorry, what? No, seriously, why? Why are you supporting? Because he's a guy.
You couldn't insult me more.
Look, he has 2 eyes. He has 2 ears. He's a guy. He's got a nose on his face.
Yeah. If somebody came up to me and said, I'm going to vote for you because you are the most handsome, attractive male ever.
Well, then they're delusional. They're drunk at that point. I'm not saying I don't want the drunk voter, but I'm just saying I know where to classify them.
I'd be insulted.
Right. I'd take their keys.
Okay. Part of me would be insulted.
I would take their keys. No, they get to stay. But I'm taking their keys. It would be insulting. It's what we said about.
It'd be insulting.
It's what we said about Obama. With all the endorsements. Hey, you mind doing that over? And maybe mentioning qualifications? Maybe. You can't do that on the left. Everything is about identity. And by the way, that includes you, which means that however they classify you, and they classify you, however they classify you, you better be a part of that. Remember the young white girls screaming in the black officer's face during the riots?
That he's not black.
You're not actually black. You're a disgrace to your own race is what they were shouting in his face. Young white girls were shouting that into the face of a black man.
False.
Wow.
All built on false imagery.
Exactly.
That's why you have Kamala Harris with the poll numbers that she has, because a significant portion of the American public only reacts that way.
Yep.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
In Red Eye Radio, he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I'm just reading this quote here from Robert Kennedy Jr. If Fox News lets me on the stage for the debate, I will win the election. You know how I can say that that's completely false?
How?
Is because there's not going to be a debate on Fox News.
See? The Kennedys are sly. Yeah, if Fox News lets me on this, see, he can just throw that out there. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, she's not going to agree to it.
She's not going to agree to it anyway. Yeah, it's not going to happen.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.